Kama glass tunagonganisha, sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha, sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha, sai 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 kama glass tunagonganisha, sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha, sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha, sai 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 kama si sai si dai, kama ni mboy si vai, kama na seti ni ngwai, pamza baadaye si dai, kama ni sai, naitaka sai sai, makali napiga kachai, sina deni ndo ninajidai, ziko wapi marizo lai, plaga nafika tisai, saizi meshika design, Manchester ndo mina dai, seso lenza rogalini, sai 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 sai, seso tajoma kalini, sai 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 sai, kama kufanya nafanya kamini, sijali ni nini unasema nani, kama ni kuja miujiza kajini, na wakanyaga kanyasi nani, shari manyoni peng, deba ni kali na bang, na wanyuri na swag, bado na stack the bag, kama glass tunagonganisha, sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha, sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha, sai 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 kama glass tunagonganisha, sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha, sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha, sai 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 medondoka mati donda utiaji nanka ako maji ama tuti mrazi mbogi na ngoja nifike sai jumboke imevai tupige sai jump pia imeshika walai nana nisenkita dai sai
saisa acha siasa si ulisema unafika sai
sai robo dakika nafika sai nimejipin jaba na steam mavelo kibon mejaza kwa tin mali ni fit kitu legit shukisha curtain safisha sim rada ni clean basara medin me and my team we in it to win shari manyoni peng deba ni kali na bang na wanyuri na swag bado na stack the bag kama glass tunagonganisha sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha sai 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 kama glass tunagonganisha sai sai kama wada tunafuatanisha sai sai kama mzuka tunapagawisha sai 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 sai
Money.
Very smart.
Very smart.
You look good, John.
Yeah.
Look at you.
I want to breathe.
You want to?
I don't feel comfortable.
Bye.
Ati Mr. Price, zangu ni gikosh. Ati deja vu, zangu ni kilosh. Bile tunaspendi ni kama wash. Punguza haraka, hapa ni mosmos. Mina die soft life, si maisha ngumu. Settle down, find a nice wife in Kisumu. Ati me cuffed, who knew? Settle down, find a nice wife in Kisumu. Sini sato, situpae kota. Sini sato, situsare mboka. Sini sato, washa kimoja. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Si for now tuziwashe. Si for now niko single. Tutapate, leta maji ndio tukate. Na siwezi weka blue band kwa mkate. Sini sato, hatujali. Tumeenda suma chupa mbalimbali. Akina kafi seti mali. Nimedishi demu wako ni kitu kali. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Nita settle down siku moja. But si leo na si kesho. Hakuna dema amenifunga, mi si leso, ni Nairobi. Kwa nini kesho? Me I never take L's, me I take lessons. Sija settle, bado sija settle. Niko single, bado niko single. Come show them wangu, wacha maringo. I'm single, even when I'm not single. And if you don't get it, forget about it. Me I'm gonna make it, I never doubt it. Ati what? What you gonna do about it? Sija settle, bado sija settle. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Ita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Ita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Ita settle down siku moja. Settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. Ita settle down siku moja.
A very, 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 very good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to Icon Radio, your number one entertainment plug. I'm hoping that you're having a great evening. You've had your coffee, you've had your tea, because it's going to be crazy this great evening. It is Mondays. Hang out with me, KANG'ETHE NJOROGE, and I'm very excited today because we'll be talking about climate change. And the reason why is because Kenya is hosting Africa Climate Summit, and it's definitely really big. And sometimes we want to find out why is Africa Climate Summit climate change very important. I know that you've been getting a lot of news about cyclones, especially Cyclone Freddy, who has been causing havoc in Mauritius, Namibia, Mozambique, as early as 21st of February 2023. So it's definitely big. And here today is a policy officer at one campaign at the woman, right? Is it
Olawumni.
Olawumni?
Yes. Close.
Very hard. Your name is really, really hard. Olawumni is here with us today to just explain to us why is climate change very important right now. Thank you so much for coming in. We've been waiting for you all week, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm really happy to be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. Why is climate change very important right now? We've been seeing a lot of talks about it, a lot of talks about investment in it. Why is climate change very important right now?
Sure.
Yeah.
So climate change is important because climate change is a complete disruptor of how we do things as a society,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I'll use an example of farmers, especially because in Africa, is that things that used to be predictable with respect to the weather, right, are no longer predictable. So when farmers are thinking about their harvest and planting season, they can no longer predict what will happen because maybe the rains don't come when they used to.
Yes.
Or they don't come for as long as they used to.
Yes.
And when they do come, it's a flood, and so they lose all the things. These are the disruptive effects of climate change.
I mean, we've had the biggest droughts in 45 years in Kenya.
Consecutive seasons.
Yes.
Yes.
In the last 45 years, this has been the biggest drought. And is this because of climate change?
Yes, this is because of climate change. We have seen persistent increases in temperature.
Yes.
Right, because of carbon emissions and other emissions, other greenhouse gas emissions that are trapped in the air, and they've created a warmer conditions for our climate.
Yes.
But also rising sea levels. Right, so we're seeing floods. We're seeing more extreme weather events. Right, we're seeing what you referred to, Cyclone Freddy in Mozambique and in Malawi and in Zimbabwe, right? Events that people can't prepare for, right? And that are devastating crops, devastating infrastructure, right? And we're also seeing, desertification. We're seeing our resources, our natural resources, become more scarce.
Yeah.
So people are fighting over water, fighting over good land, right? And so climate change affects so much of what we do. It's affecting our ability to feed ourselves.
Yes.
It's affecting our ability to live in safe housing. It's affecting our ability to have safe water, like access to water.
Yeah.
It's leading to conflict.
Yes.
It's advancing poverty. So it's a threat to everything that we have built as a continent.
Yes.
Everything that we have worked for. And also, when we have a hotter climate, we are also seeing worse diseases, right? Or malaria spreading, more than it used to. So climate change really affects every facet of our lives.
Yes.
A lot of people may not know it as climate change. They may not recognize, these things that we're experiencing are because of climate change. So it's important to have conversations like this on the continent to be able to link people's daily realities and daily experiences of climate change
Yes.
to the wider conversations we're having about how to respond to it, how to address it, how to make sure that we don't let it completely reverse the gains we have made in development
Yes.
over the past decades.
All right. That's very interesting. At least you've really opened up our eyes to know this is everything. If we don't take care of the climate change, we're not going to be here in a while. Yeah. But what you said about carbon emissions and stuff, we have seen that Africa accounts for just 4% of global emissions. Why this is just 4%? Why is it very important that now Africa wants to focus on mitigating the climate challenges?
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to this. The first part is, why has Africa account for so little, right? It's because we haven't really industrialized as much as other countries,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So the richer countries of this world, they have had access to coal and oil and gas, and they've been using that as the primary source of energy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that energy fuels their industries, the manufacturing that they do, the agriculture that they do, everything, and it underpins their life, right?
Yes.
But we learned through the years that actually this way of creating energy through fossil fuels is not good for our planet. It leads to carbon emissions, right? And now that we know better, we have to do better, right?
We have to do better.
Yes. You can't see that the old way of doing something is not working for you. It's literally killing you.
Yes.
Right? It's killing
yes.
your children's futures.
Yes.
And then say, okay, well, because we've only done this little, we must just continue. No, because the truth of the matter is, and this is the second point, is that as Africa, we have abundant resources that allow us to do industrialization and development differently.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is what His Excellency President Ruto mentioned in his opening remarks today. We have the world's best solar resources. We have wind power potential. We have geothermal potential. So we don't have to do things the way that we've always done them.
Yes.
Knowing that it does not help us. Right?
Yes.
And so it's important to know why we are where we are, which is that richer, more industrialized countries have used fossil fuels and gotten us to this point where there's so much pollution, there's so much global warming.
Yes.
But now, knowing that, as Africans, it's up to us with our abundant resources to say, hey, if you give us the money and the finance that we need, we can show you how to develop a different way, a way that is more in line with keeping our planet healthy and leaving a planet that is healthy for our children.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Okay, that's how we start. Definitely the interview. Very, very interesting conversations. Remember, you can catch us on all social media handles at Icon Radio KE. If you have any questions about climate change, this is the time. Let's go back to music. Eric Quinina come up with the song Selena, and then Bien and Aaron Rimbo are coming up with the song Mbwembwe. Enjoy it only on Icon Radio, your number one entertainment plug.
sitamruhusu akuchape. Nami silali, sipati usingizi, kula siwezi ukilia. Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. Selina Nyamboku, Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. Ulitoka kwenu bila alama, wosi upendo, yosi heshima, watu wazima huongea. Kama si hivyo ungeoa kondo. Selina mrembo, kama si hivyo ungeoa kondo. Selina mrembo, Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. Takuwakilisha mbele ya wazee. Kama ni shuka, kama ni mbuzi, tawarudishia mara mbili. Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. I want to marry you, yeah. So very, very beautiful. So very, very beautiful. Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. I want to marry you, yeah. Selina Nyamboku, you're so beautiful. I want to marry you. So very beautiful. So very beautiful. Kunywa maji, ukimaliza kunywa pombe, peleka maisha pole pole, dajipe mwenyewe zitoke. Kunywa maji, ukimaliza kunywa pombe, peleka maisha pole pole, dajipe mwenyewe zitoke. Songa ugali, foundation weka ya samaki, ikatikati ya Januari, kula ukasirishe kamati. Twanga ugali, foundation weka ya samaki, ikatikati ya Januari, haribu jina jenga mwili. Ayoyo aroro, fungwa batoni ya shati mekukabako, fungwa pia mushipi ya tili ya tumbo, usiogope kungula jasho yako mama. Aroro, niko na saizi yangu ya ni 4x4, katoto maliza vibeka than before, pesa sabuni na inaniosha roho. Hapa ni mbwembwe, abani mbwe mbwe, abani mbwe. Weta mbili mbili abani mbwe mbwe. Wawili leo ni mbwe mbwe. Aroro na biene meni mbwe mbwe, abani mbwe mbwe. Piga kazi kulima sichagui jembe. Mzigo wangu wacha ni bebe. Jipange ama tukupange. Washa kitu shetani ya hepe. Si alijileta mwenyewe. Abani shangwe tuna mbwe mbwe. Abani mbwe mbwe.
Takusave na love emoji into your official name. PDA bila woga, your license ni bet. I'll buy some boxes you can share with me. Wache kuvisit tuishi nami. Kifungu mkutole kopi usizubae kwa gate. Vitungu tutone ngozi uchi ujionyeshe. Si Valentine's ni kweke akas pale kwa TV. That's my walewe and it must be me. Kesho yetu sifananishe na jana. Lamina reli hazitoshani upana. Uchumi mbaya but I'll spend my 2 days with you. Leo wiko na guarantee. Takwita wangu kabla uitwe na Maulana. You're my rose but I'll still give you your flowers. Takupenda sahi na kasi sahi. Ni sasa hivi. Takwita wangu kabla uitwe na Maulana. You're my rose but I'll still give you your flowers. Takupenda sahi na kasi sahi. ni sasa hivi, sasa hivi, sasa hivi, sasa hivi, takupenda sahi.
Ukipigana na dunia, I'll be fighting by your side. I'll carry your name, my love is strong enough. Now meaning with your weaknesses, open up. I'm on your team, not against you. I'll cook your favorite meal, ukule ulambe sahani. Yakimwagika tapanguza usijali. Lazima nikuzalie watu wenu wanijue. Hiyo neza guarantee. Kesho yetu sifananishe na jana. Lami na reli hazitoshani upana. Uchumi mbaya but I'll spend my 2 days with you. Nikona guarantee. Takuita wangu kabla uitwe na Maulana. You're my rose but I still give you your flowers. Nitakupenda sahi na kasi sahi. Ni sasa hivi. Takuita wangu kabla uitwe na Maulana. You're my rose but I still give you your flowers. Nitakupenda sahi na kasi sahi. Ni sasa hivi.
Takupenda sasa hivi, I'll give you your flowers.
Spendi your favorite artist but nakupenda nda compromise. Klabu date ya smocha umind vile baga sifiki price. Kona movie kwa lapini intimate, hatuwezi shikana kwa theater. Ni kuandalie candlelit dinner, tokens kidogo vile mita inateta. Kuna tisho flani nimebuy baggies, tuone vile itakuvaa. Ati games gani hapa labda kadi, I'll never play with your heart. Twende house hunting tupange nyumba bila intentions za kukaa. Neza kopa gari twende nao na nyuki but hiyo ni trip ya njaa. Ugumu wa mkate ushia kwa chai, twende kibanda. Yetu ni simu iko kwa moto, chaji nenda ikipanda. Broti maguta, you're my fatal kiwanja. Ukipotea nitakutafuta, I'm one half you're the other.
A very, very, very good evening. That is Vijana Barubaru. Yani, this song just hits me to the core. I think it's one of the best songs that Kenya had to produce. Congrats, Vijana Barubaru. And I'm definitely excited that you're here with me right now on Icon Radio, your number one entertainment plug. You hang with me, KANG'ETHE NJOROGE. On Money Mondays today, we're definitely talking about climate change. This is because of what's happening in the country, because we have the Africa Climate Week and as well as the Africa Climate Summit. Now, while Africa's per capita emissions are significantly lower than the global average, you've just said that it accounts for just 4%. The continent is definitely affected by the rising global temperatures. I think that's what we've been discussing about, and escalating climate consequences. We've seen drought, desertification, and as well as cyclones that we've been discussing, among others, that are causing food shortages, displacements, and migration. And today I'm definitely having the policy officer.
Not a police officer, please.
Policy officer at One Campaign. Now you're here because of the climate summit. How are you finding Nairobi, first of all? I didn't even ask you how you find Nairobi.
I like being back in Nairobi.
Yes.
It's not my first time.
Uh-huh.
I think what's wonderful about visiting different African cities is getting to just see the different levels of vibrancy. Of this great summit.
Yes.
That's a milestone for African countries. You know, it's the first summit of its kind on
Yeah.
climate
Yeah.
on the continent, and I think it's important that finally we're inviting others to come speak at such a high level about our priorities, what we think is important for us to be able to achieve our climate goals, to be more sustainable.
All right, that's amazing. Talking about that, how are we doing in terms of mitigating climate change in Africa? I know that these are the talks that we're having this definitely this week. But how are we doing? Are we okay? Are we 50%? Are we 100? Are we 2?
How
are we doing? Yeah,
we're trying. We're making a good effort.
Yeah, we're trying.
We're making a good effort, mostly because we don't have a choice, right? So for a while, people, and even now, people speak about climate change as if it's something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the effects of climate change are going to happen to us. The apocalypse is going to come. But the truth is, for many Africans, especially those living in rural areas or those who are dependent on the land, right?
Yes.
It's already here. The disruptive effects of climate change are already being felt.
We're feeling it really, really, really hard.
And African countries are some of the most vulnerable to climate change.
Yes.
So African governments don't really have a choice in that when a cyclone Freddy happens and destroys your infrastructure, destroys your crops, you have to respond. You have to reduce the disaster risk for future ones.
Yes.
You have to respond to the people who have lost things.
Yeah.
So we're spending a lot of money on loss and damage, even though we're asking for money at the UNFCCC.
Yes.
But we're already spending money adapting to these problems and responding to the effects of climate change.
Yes.
Some countries are spending, like 2% of GDP, 3% of GDP, up to 5% of GDP, trying to adapt to climate change because it's a reality now, right? So our governments are doing that by force, by fire, by force, whether they like it or not, right? And then the other thing that they're doing is because it's already a reality at the AU level, right? So coming together at a regional level, they have a strategy for how they want to deal with climate change, how they want to respond to it, how they want to turn it not just into responding to problems, but also turn it into an opportunity for how we can lead the world on climate solutions and show the world, what is possible. But, the key barrier is all of these all of this renewable energy, all of our forests that provide carbon sinks, all of our green critical minerals, those things, to really make them work for us, we need to invest in them. We need to invest in creating like wind turbines to harness the wind energy. We need to invest in being able to harness the solar, but without money and without cheap finance, we can't do that, right?
Yes.
And that is why climate finance is such a core point of discussion at the summit. Because we have ideas, we have solutions, we have resources. What we don't always have is the money to realize
the money,
right? We don't always have the money to make those things work for us. And we don't always have the technical capacity that we need to also make those things work for us.
Yes, because African countries have the potential to be, front runners in renewable energy and sustainable land use and innovative technologies, that and attracting investments, facilitating technology transfer. There's a lot that we can do. And talking about the money, in the last Paris Agreement, developing partners or partners decided and had said that they will be investing 100 billion to Africa to mitigate climate change. Has that been effected?
Yes. So what you're referring to is a few COPs ago, more than 10 COPs ago now. Rich countries, so high-income industrialized countries, pledged to raise $100 billion every year for climate finance by 2020. So it was supposed to be until 2025. Right?
Yes.
We have not yet reached that goal. Of the most recent numbers that we have from 2019, we were sitting at $83 1.3 billion in climate finance from developed countries to lower and middle income countries across the world.
Yes. sorry.
Not just African countries.
Yeah.
Right? And 2022 was 3 years. 2020, sorry, was 3 years ago.
Mm.
When someone makes you a promise and it's 3 years late, you start to feel a type. You start to feel
some
as
type
if,
of way.
Are
you serious?
Yes.
Are you serious with me right
So
now?
I think that has resulted in a huge loss of trust, right? When lower income countries look at highly industrialized countries and they say, you have already spent so much of the carbon that we can emit, you've already emitted it.
Yes.
You are winning in that, right? And you have left so little for us. You've left us little room to maneuver, right?
Yes.
And now we're saying, okay, it's fine. We have these resources that we can maybe bypass the fossil fuels a little bit.
Yes.
But we need you to give us some money, and it's the least that you can do since you have already benefited so much, right?
Yes.
But we're not even getting that much. And the truth is, this 100 billion is just it's like the tiny amount.
It's a tip
compared
of the
to what we
iceberg.
actually need.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So definitely, almost as a this is the least you can do. We continue to call on developed countries, on highly industrialized countries, to fulfill this $100 billion promise, because it is the very least that they can do.
At least the very
right?
least.
And that gets us somewhere, because it at least creates some form of predictable finance. If governments can know, okay, there's this pot of 100 billion every year that we can at least count on until 2025, that's something.
Yes.
That's something predictable. We don't have that right now, right? So that would already go far. It's not enough. Let me emphasize that.
It's not enough. How much is enough? How much is enough? At yesterday's press conference, I heard about 50 to 70 trillion dollars.
No. So some credible estimates from a paper that was written or commissioned around what do we need as the world to achieve our sustainable development goals, our climate and development goals for emerging markets and developing countries, excluding China, right? We need something like 2.4 trillion, right? By 2025. That's
2.4 trillion.
We're talking about trillions, right?
Yes.
And at least 1 point something trillion of that needs to come from external, so from outside of countries, outside of those countries.
So developing partners.
Yes. We need that kind of money. Doesn't just fall from the sky. It's not money that comes because someone likes you or wants to do you a favor, right? It's money that we have to be intentional in creating, right? It needs to come from governments, having better taxation, so making sure that we're not losing our money due to illicit financial flow. So money flying away from our countries because it's unaccounted for, right? Or being held in a secret account on some island. We want less of that.
You're not pointing fingers, are you?
I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying we know it happens. So we want to keep as much money as possible within our borders if we can, right? That's one. But we can't do it alone. So we need institutions like the multilateral development banks to release more finance, right? And for African countries that already have quite high debt burdens, we're in Kenya, so we know, right, what debt can do.
Yes.
Right? So it's not...
We're paying heavily that price.
Exactly. So it's not feasible to be borrowing at interest rates that are higher than your economy is growing.
Yes.
You're borrowing more than you can keep up then you're making money to be able to pay off, right?
Yes.
So for African countries, what is most important is cheap finance. So we need multilateral development banks for that. Things like institutions like the World Bank, right? We need them to provide that kind of finance. And for them to do that, they need to work better. They need to use the money that they do have. They need to make it more efficient. They need to use it more efficiently, right? So that more is available to lower income countries. And they also, the shareholders, the countries that have the most power and the most say in how those institutions run, need to invest more money, to put in more money, right? Because the wonderful thing about those institutions is because we have said that we trust them.
We trust them,
We trust them, right?
Yeah.
And because they have a guarantee from their wealthy shareholders that, look, if anything really goes wrong, we actually have money that we can give you to make sure you don't go bankrupt, right? So they have that guarantee. They can take on more risk than they're taking on now, right? So because we trust them, they are able to take the money that we give them and then go to the traditional financing markets and turn that money into 4 times more, right? Of that, and then lend that 4 times more to us. That is why they're so amazing. And so we need them to just work to be bigger, to be better, right? So that they're a big part of this 1.2
They're a big part.
trillion. Yes, we want to see them triple the amount of finance that they're giving to lower income countries now. Yeah.
Awesome, and definitely we'll be discussing and chipping in about what to expect at the climate summit, what one campaign is, championing for. But let's go back to the music. I don't know, are you from Nigeria?
I am Nigerian and South African. Yes. Could you not tell from my name?
It's so confusing because it's I see the Nigerian on Olawumni.
Yes.
Because Olawumni was there's an artist called Olawumni, right?
There might be. There's so many Olawumnis and Mwawumis, and we're many.
We're many, but we're playing a song from your country. Fave is coming up with the song Mr. Man. You love Fave, yes, and I heard that you also love Just a Band, so we're definitely gonna play one of the songs from Just a Band. When we come back, of course, what do we expect from the Africa Climate Summit? Right here on Icon Radio, your #1 entertainment plug. Check out our socials, Icon Radio KE on all platforms, and let us know exactly what you need to know about climate change. Back to the music. Fave with the song Mr. Man.
Activate, sassy. You know everything's Afro shit.
Things you cannot say with your mouth, will you say with your hands? I respond. DJ, could you play me, Mr. Man? Record a little dance on the floor. If walking down the aisle, I make you shiver, I could be patient with you till you can learn to give love, honey. I could be patient with you. Wanna write a letter, no comments, so you know that I'm a one-day soldier. This love is what I have, this heart is what I give, and everything else too. Talk to me, talk to me. I would've never fall asleep without you near. Talk to me, talk to me. I would've never fall asleep without you near. Things you cannot say with your mouth, will you say with your hands? Alright, DJ, could you play me, Mr. Man? Record a little dance on the floor. If I turn around, would you follow? Would you finally say yes? When the mothers tell you no, they disappoint. I go treat you as my guest. Baby, oh, where you they go, where you they go? Put yourself deep inside my shoes. Then you will know that I will never ever, I want to leave you alone. Things you cannot say with your mouth, will you say with your hands? I respond. DJ, could you play me, Mr. Man? Record a little dance on the floor. Talk to me. I would never fall asleep without you near.
the power.
Nadia, Alex is on the beat.
Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh me bo. Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh me bo. Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh me bo. Mélo, j'ai dit, l'existence j'ai des beaux moments. Je dois me faire un proprement. J'ai découvert qu'après la pluie des beaux moments, des fois je fais semblant. Hey, yeah. Je fascine mes efforts. Au paradis tout au bord de mes sorts. Dirais-je parfait. Et bon j'ai pris pour mon avenir. Oh mi boling, motema nangai. Oh mi ni wangu meniteka moyo. Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh mi bo. 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 Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh mi bo.
Nayoki osheri, kasi ke balobi boya kole lisangai. Kobanga te bebe, oyo nde ebandeli ya bolingo na piso. Umenyenyesha mapenzi tena ya ukweli, mwenyeji wa roho yangu. Unajua kupenda, kubembeleza, kwani umetokea wapi? Mapenzi ya Kikenya, Nairobi ni kuonjeshe, nipeleke Kinshasa ni kuonyeshe. Baby, bolingo motema nangai. Wewe ni wangu meniteka moyo.
Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh mi bo. 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 Bolingwa, bolingwa, oh mi bo.
Real time music.
South C, South B, 111, 23, West D, can't get me, nah, don't need, namanane baby. Ain't no city like my city, oh no, no, no. Nairobi, they can do it like we do it in the 254. Nairobi, my hustler, now my damn suku, kawangare, buru buru. I love my city, oh yes I do. Na 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 Nairobi.
25 flow, we on a wave. Kamixa dem makufu vile na bounce kwa hit track. Ukipenda hala chuchu, jiwe, mayoyo. Hey, we got the nunu, I'm in love with my city. Boss, I'm going kuku, hey. Hini ya madem wale ukulenga mtaani. Mkikutana Nairobi wana wave kwa mbali. Luku luku ni ya wadhi, utadhani Tamford. Saya kinenge, shika mavanga Sanford. Hey, niko idha mapararira kanganya. Big up my hustlers, wanaotamak. Ma foreigners, wale, makwa wamehama. Machoko shwale jiji, kwa pia ni mama. I'm keeping it real, keeping it local. I'm so raw, original flow though. And Nairobi, ay, ay, ay. It's magic when I'm on the mic, I'm saying, ay, ay, ay.
Ain't no city like my city, oh no, no, no. Nairobi, they can do it like we do it in the 254. Nairobi,
Gigi,
my hustler, now my damn suku,
Hey.
kawangare, buru buru. I love my city, oh yes I do.
Na, 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 Nairobi.
Madare, kileleshwa, Embakase, hapa hope ni abama bama hitu ninatuleta pamoja chama tupate mitatu na zama ama eo ni kama tumewateko Kampala na Jadama enai tunaweza robi ai tunatesa hata mayu pako yama ain't no city like my city oh no Nairobi they can do it like we do it in the 254
Gigi,
my hustler my dem so cool don't got it buru buru I love my city oh yes I do Nairobi
Gigi,
my hustler my dem so cool don't got it buru buru I love my city oh yes I do
Nairobi tumelogit kibobo kadunga mosquito sio shocking things bobo logit kibobo Woo. No shocking things bobo.
All right, Nairobi there by Mayonde. And of course, Nairobi is taking the center stage this week due to Africa Climate Summit happening in Nairobi at the KICC. Over 20,000 participants, I'm telling you. Today, if you were trying to park in Nairobi city center, I know you had problems. But it's all good because it's a time to talk about mitigating Africa climate change challenges. I'm here with Olawumni, the policy officer at One Campaign, just discussing about what's going on at the Africa Climate Summit. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we're learning a lot about what's going on and why this is important. But I wanted us to dive a bit about who One Campaign is and why you're here in Nairobi.
So One is a global movement, advocacy organization.
Yeah.
And our mission is to end extreme poverty and preventable diseases, right? So in line with the SDGs, hopefully to do this by 2030, this is why we were set up. I think the way that we work is quite unique. So we are an organization of, people who have some sort of expertise on the issues that we work on.
Yes.
Issues related to development finance, issues related to health, issues related to climate change.
Yes.
But we're also quite a young and youthful organization because the way that we do our work isn't just about generating the research and analysis that me sitting on the policy team, that's my job, right? It's also about communicating that research and that analysis in a way that moves people to act.
Yes.
That resonates with people's lived realities in terms of their experiences of poverty and of disease, right? So we want to not only have this policy expertise of what needs to change, right? We also want to communicate it in a way that moves people to action, that mobilizes people. And we do this through not only having interviews like this, right? But making sure they're interesting. So we have a pop culture element. We want to be able to reach the young people, right? Because young people are, they have energy, right? So
they do.
They're a force for good.
They are,
and we're a young continent also, especially in African countries. So we want to harness the power of young people. So we have youth advocates, we have champions who take forward our messaging and the points of advocacy that we have. But we also do more, quote unquote, serious matches in terms of delving a little bit into the political side of things. We want to speak to the people in power. We want to make sure that we are advising them, influencing them, helping them think through the potential decisions that they could take to alleviate poverty, to have better health outcomes for their people, right? So this is the crux of what One does. We are in many countries in Africa. We don't have one office per se, right? Like we are in we're in South Africa, we're in Kenya, we're in Senegal, we're in the US, we're in G7 countries, the UK, France. We were set up to sort of make sure that rich countries in the G7 really do their part in terms of providing aid to lower income countries. But now with climate happening, climate and development have to go hand in hand.
Yes.
If you fail on one, you fail on the other.
Yes,
and we
you
understand this now as an organization. So we have embraced climate change, and we have embraced climate possibility where Africa is concerned, and that is why we're here at the Africa Climate Summit.
Oh, climate responsibility. I love that. I love that. What are some of the urgent actions needed to mitigate climate change in Africa? I know that those are some of the things that you'll be that will be discussed during the conference.
Yes.
But what are some, according to Juan and according to you, what are some of the urgent needs that we need to do?
Sure. So one is something I've touched on, which is the finance.
Yes.
It is really the key, a key barrier to what is possible in terms of addressing climate change, its negative effects, but also in terms of realizing the potential of doing development differently in a way that is more climate aligned and is more sustainable. So money to be able to realize this potential that Africa has is very important. I cannot stress that enough.
Yes.
And in terms of that, we really want to see, as I mentioned earlier, we want the multilateral development banks to provide more and cheaper financing. So we want to see the World Bank in particular triple the financing.
World Bank.
The World Bank.
You hear it to hear it here.
And then we, of course, want the higher income countries to meet that promise, that they made all those years ago.
Yes.
Of providing the $100 billion for climate finance to lower income countries every year. We want to see that happen. And we want to see a doubling of adaptation finance in particular, because adapting to climate change is something that is necessary right now for African countries. And it's not something that is as much of a business case as mitigating emissions, right? So we really need cheap finance there. So that money from higher income countries, for it to be more grants based, to be less costly, to be grants, so no interest, right, is very important. And lastly, the IMF has this wonderful it's not money, right, but it's sort of something that allows you to have more liquidity. It's kind of like a guarantee, sort of, right? Called special drawing rights. And they're allocated to countries, usually based on their wealth. And recently, richer countries were allowed to give pork or recycle or reallocate the SDRs that they get and make it available to other countries, right? So they can't spend this money, but they can say we have it in reserve, right? And then it frees up space for them to use the money that they do have on other things that they need, right? So we want these SDRs to go through multilateral development banks. Right now they are only held by the IMF, and they can do so much more if they can also be held by multilateral development banks, right? So we want to see that. So that's the finance. There's a lot that could happen there, right? But those are the three things, and that's where our focus is. But there's also a lot of room for African countries to work together on these issues. We can only go so far alone, and we are stronger together than we are as a single country. Right? When we go into these negotiation rooms as 1.4 billion people as opposed to just Kenya, right? We have a lot more to offer, and we have a lot more weight to throw behind our asks, right? So I think what we also want to see is African leaders really having a collective plan for our climate aligned development, right? Having a plan on what they are going to do to create the kind of environment where people want to invest in our countries, to make sure that the regulations and the laws are ones that will protect people's investments, right? But also ones that will ensure that whatever profit or whatever revenue we generate from these investments, right, will also be accessible to people, right, and will be distributed equitably. So making sure that women and youth are not left behind. So we need African leaders to come together. And one way that this can happen is by giving the African Union a permanent seat at the Group of 20. So the Group of 20 is an economic bloc, right, of some really rich countries like the U.S. and the U.K. and the EU, but then also emerging economies, right, like Argentina, and they decide a lot of things. They have power over a lot of how global institutions work.
Yeah.
Africa doesn't have a permanent voice there. We just have South Africa. South Africa cannot be representing all of us. We love South Africa. Shout out to my home, But I'm sure even South Africa finds itself there. Like, it'd be nice if I could have other people like backing me up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that it's very important the seat for the African Union at the G20, which is happening next week.
Yes.
So loud that on social media if you can. We want representation. And we want it to be meaningful.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's a lot that we need to do, but very critical. That is very important. We can do that. What are some of the barriers that are blocking us to act on the climate change effects or to mitigate these effects? What are some of the barriers? Apart from, definitely you talked about finance, but do you see other barriers? You also talked about us not having a seat at the G20 table. What are other barriers that you could see?
I think one limit is also our imagination to think differently, right?
I love that. Imagination.
Yes, it's a very important resource, and I think it's not spoken about. We, as human beings, we've done things a particular way. It's what I've said, right? And so we're used to that way, and we think that when we're confronted with something that says, no, actually you need to maybe do something differently, right?
Yes.
We need to imagine a world where, okay, fossil fuels are not something. Let's imagine a world where fossil fuels don't exist.
Yes.
And let's ask ourselves, let's challenge ourselves, how do we grow without this as an option?
Yes.
Right? So I do think we need a little bit more imagination, and to see our problems as opportunities, as is being called for in this climate summit.
Yes.
I think the other barrier is limiting who can come up with solutions, right?
Limiting.
Yes, like limiting where good ideas can come from. It doesn't always have to come from the top down, right? There's a lot of initiatives that are going on at local level where people are, again, as I said in the beginning, feeling this personally, intimately, and they are having to adapt by force. We have indigenous knowledge of people who know our environment intimately, and so can teach us ways about how to forecast, what are the plants that will actually survive in this new climate, all of these things, right?
Yes.
We need to tap in to our people resources, right, at the ground, and look at the people that maybe aren't always present in the room.
Yes.
We need to look at our indigenous folks. We need to look at our youth. We need to look at our women, because these are the people that are feeling the effects most keenly. Therefore, they could be the greatest providers of our solutions.
Okay. Talking about youth and women, in your capacity, have you seen a lot of youth very excited about climate change?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Were you at the KICC this weekend? Yes, there was the Africa Youth Assembly. So one of the amazing things about the summit, right, is usually when we have these big climate conversations, it's very serious people in their suits and ties. We love them. They have money. They control the money. We need them to come together and make decisions. We love it.
Yes.
And there's youth, but often it can feel as if the youth are there because if we don't have them there, then people will say, where were the youth?
It's like the way we always have someone like, it's okay, let's have the youth. It's like just a cliche of
it's just a box to tick.
Yes, right, it's a box. Exactly. I like it. It's a box to tick. Yeah.
But I think what the government of Kenya and the AU did, they had a whole other, like a pre-summit for the youth, where the youth could come together, and it was really about them and their voices. And they had audience with people with power. I mean, His Excellency President Ruto was with them yesterday, I believe, and also the president of the AFDB, the African Development Bank, so they can speak to these people directly, and they could also come up with their own solutions and their own ideas of what they want to see from the summit, and that is going to be integrated into the summit that's going on now. I think this is the first time that they're doing something like this, right?
Yes.
So really having the voice and the calls of young people represented is important. And so yes, young people are here. We have champions from Kenya, and I think we have a champion from Italy, we have a champion from Ethiopia, we have champions from across Africa, right, who have come with us to Nairobi, and even Kenyans even champions in Kenya,
Nairobi,
right?
yes.
That have come to share their vision of what does Africa capitalizing on its climate on its green resources look like.
Yes.
What would they do if they were in charge of our climate finances? You know, they have so many good ideas. And so I think they are really excited because also it's their future.
It's their future.
It's their future.
And I like what you said, being their future. Do we and I'm not so sure if our young people, probably our kids coming up, that they will understand. And I think for me that we need to also bring in climate teaching in our schools, so that people understand that, protect the environment.
Yes.
The environment will protect you.
Yes, that is a great way to say it. Yes.
So I know that we definitely need a lot of studies going on. What about women? How do you you said women and youth are the most affected in terms of climate change. How are women responding to climate change right now?
Yes. So I think women, so in Africa, agriculture is a big part of livelihoods, and women are a big part of agriculture.
Yes.
So when we say that agriculture is one of the hardest hit sectors by climate change, it is women who are mostly feeling the effects of that.
Yes.
And so it is women who have to think of creative ways to respond to the effects that they're seeing. And again, it's about where can good ideas come from, and I think the women can speak to that. It's also, when you think about the knock-on effects, right, of the negative effect of climate change on agriculture.
Yes.
When crops fail and there's less food, it is often women who eat less so that their families can eat more.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of ways that women are being forced to adapt, right? They'll feed their children first, and maybe like cut back on meat or on certain nutrients, right?
Yes.
Because they can't afford it, or because they no longer have access to it because of bad crops, right? Women are moving. They're taking their babies and they're walking to different places. They're migrating to where they can have more resources. Those are some of the examples of like forced adaptation, right?
Forced adaptation.
Yes, exactly. But they're also thinking about creative things, like coming together and putting together their resources so that they can share what they have, right? And are not just relying on themselves. So I think there's multitude of ways that every day women are trying to do better with the less resources that they have. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Let's go back to the music and know that you're, enjoying this conversation. What are your thoughts on climate change and its effects on Africa? Our social media, Icon Radio KE, on all platforms. Let us know. If you have any questions for Kiwumi, also let us know. Going back to the music, coming right up is Had the Band, the song Ukimwona.
but you're probably okay. I'm here again, falling in love again. I'm here again, falling in love again. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Be my friend. Maybe in future lives we can be together. We'll make a promise that we're gonna be okay. I'm here again, falling in love again. I'm here again, falling in love again. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. I'm here again, falling in love again. I'm here again, falling in love again. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever. Hatutasanganya na kutanganya na forever. Hatutapigana na kuumizana na forever.
Probably for Lovers, a song by Just a Band. That is the favorite song for Olawumni. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Courtesy
much
of
for
Icon
playing
Radio. I hope that you enjoyed that song.
I did.
And we are here on talking about what Africa Climate Summit looks like. And of course, it is here on Icon Radio, your number one entertainment flag. You hang out with me, KANG'ETHE NJOROGE. This and every Monday we come here and talk to you about what's going on in the business world. And of course, this week we're definitely handling Africa Climate Summit. Hang out with Olawumni, telling us more about what is expected. And so a whole long week. We've had so many declarations, like of course there's Paris Declaration. How are we? First of all, we can start with what do we expect at the end of this summit?
Yes. So what we can expect, because of how intentional the organizing committee has been, is lots of deals between people in African countries who have climate solutions, whether that is recycling e-waste or they are using renewable energy or providing clean cook stoves. Those are some examples, right? With investors, right? So the whole premise of the summit is that Africa has solutions. And so I think one thing the summit organizers want to come out of this with is partnering, showing the partnerships that are possible when you put people who have the technical capacity or the finance together with the people who have the solutions. What is possible? So I think we can expect a lot of announcements of that kind.
Yes.
Of initiatives that are climate positive, that embrace what is possible in terms of doing things in a way that is aligned with climate, like keeping the climate good and healthy, right? We can see we're going to see a lot of them having the resources they need to take their ideas forward or to scale them. Right? So that's sort of one of the you might say small, but I think it's actually going to be a great win. Right?
Yes.
The other thing we're going to see, or that we're hoping to see, is some firm commitment from African countries on what their targets and what their vision is for sustainable development on the continent. What are the things that they're going to aim for in terms of realizing this potential we've been speaking about? So how, in terms of renewable energy, at what point are we going to make that shift? When do we want to make that shift? What do we need to do to make that shift? What are the changes we want our global north counterparts to make to enable us to make that shift? We're going to see, I hope, commitments around harnessing the power of our natural assets, our forests, that keep carbon out of the atmosphere and help to prevent even higher global warming. How do we want to get rewarded for that? And what do we want to see from others to enable that
to enable that to happen?
Right?
Yes.
We're going to see the same on green minerals. How do we want to move from just extracting this lithium, this cobalt, these minerals that are going to be used in phones and solar panels and all that? We want to move from just extracting them to actually producing the solar panels, and actually producing the phones, on our continent. Right? And we need, what are the things we need to make that happen? So I think one thing we can expect is clearer targets on each of those areas and clearer asks for our partners on what they can do to help us reach those targets. So I think what we're hoping to see, there probably will be a declaration. We're hearing it will be called the Nairobi Declaration. But it will, I think where it will differ, is that it will allow for something for us to refer to as citizens, as people who are holding our governments to account, to say collectively, this is what we have agreed, this is what you have said that you want to do. Now we have something that we can hold them accountable to, and that we can hold our partners, our development partners, accountable to as well, to say, we've given you the vision, we've given you what we think is necessary, now let's act on it. Right? And it's really Africa again, it's this thing of speaking with a shared voice. I think that is going to be an important outcome of the summit as well.
That's a pretty nice outcomes.
It's going to be great. We have to use it. We have to instrumentalize it, right?
And I hope that this is not going to be just one of those declarations that are very good in the books. How do we make sure that what has been said is going to be followed? I mean, how do we make the declaration become the reality? Yes. Because I feel like sometimes we have a lot of committees, a lot of meetings, but nothing on paper. And I think that's what worries us.
I think it's a responsibility that belongs to all of us. Certainly, as one, we will be looking at that declaration as a guiding document, a North Star, something that we can take to different stakeholders and say, see,
you said this.
This is where we're going. So therefore, we really need you to deliver on that cheap finance. We really need you to deliver on, on creating new sources of finance. We really need you to make sure that your countries are working together to promote certain things. Right? And so we are going to be using it as a way of holding people accountable. What can everyday citizens do? They can familiarize themselves with the contents of that declaration and what it means, right? So what does it mean if we actually reach the targets in that declaration in respect to renewable energy? Well, it means that now we will be able to have we could realize better electricity access for our people in a way that is not going to come at a cost of our future generations, right? So really not just understanding the contents of the declaration, but understanding what it means for them. What is the potential? What is the impact that it could have on their lives and their future? So that's number 2. And I think media has a big part to play in that as well.
We have a big role.
See, the call to action for you.
Yes, to keep people accountable.
Yes, and we have a role to play as well.
Yeah.
The other thing it does is that there are a lot of important meetings, as you said, but decision-making moments coming up.
Sorry, yeah.
So next week we have the G20. The G20 in particular, their experts are the ones who have recommended some of these changes we want to see made to the global financial systems, right, and to multilateral development banks in particular, to change the way they work and how they take risk, how risky their lending is, so that they can provide more money. That decision is in their hands. So these people, we need to speak to them. We need to take this declaration and take these examples of potentially transformative investments and opportunities in Africa related to climate and development, right?
Yes.
We need to say, here is what is possible if only you would make this decision, if only you would allow for these reforms and unlock this money. This is what it could be funding, right? So we can go with that declaration and we can go with those opportunities as a use case to say you no longer have an excuse about why you're holding that money back. No, we need that money, and here are the exact things that money can be used for, right?
Yes.
And then we have the United Nations General Assembly, we have the World Bank and IMF meetings later in Marrakesh, and then of course we have COP28 coming up.
Yes.
So everything that's happening this week is providing us a platform and outputs that we can then use to move the conversation, move the decisions that we want to have made at these upcoming moments.
All right. This show is for business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I don't know whether you can tell us more about some of the opportunities that are there for entrepreneurs in Kenya and Africa to venture into climate solutions, climate change mitigation solutions.
Right.
And is there funding for that? Are there opportunities that they can tap into?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's a good question, and I think that at the core of it, when we talk about climate resilient development or we talk about climate change, we're also talking about environmental degradation. So the fact that we also produce and consume things in ways that are wasteful, that pollute and that destroy our environment, right? That's also part of this conversation. And what we really need is a complete transformation of how we produce and consume things. And this is where business and individuals come in, right? So some examples of things that businesses can do. We see a problem like waste, something that we all deal with, whether it's electronic waste or whether it's plastic waste, right?
Yeah.
This is an example of the kind of pollution that we're dealing with. It's a problem, but another business owner or someone entrepreneurial might see there is a business opportunity in taking this plastic and recycling it to make it into bags. I've seen that at the KICC. They were featuring some innovators at the Africa Innovation Hub. There's someone who makes bags and who makes, I think it was mostly bags and baskets out of plastic, right? And then they sell it, right? So you're giving that something that would have been pollution a second life. With e-waste, we can recycle some of those metals so that we don't have to mine more of them, right? That there's an opportunity there, right? So I think it's up to entrepreneurial minds to think about what are ways that we can reuse and recycle so that we're not being wasteful. And then government needs to provide the incentives and the rewards. For some African countries, there are climate funds. So funds that take finance that is meant for climate or environmental purposes and makes that available for projects that people nationally want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't always have to be a big thing like creating a wind turbine farm. It can be things like we've spoken about, right? But it's about governments making clear what those avenues are, whether it's a fund, whether it's accelerates a program, you know, but they need to create mechanisms or channels that get the money that they receive for climate finance. Some of that needs to go to the businesses and the individuals to encourage more sustainable practices.
Oh, awesome. So you hear my entrepreneur friends? There are many opportunities. You just need to look at them and invest. What are your final thoughts on climate change? Definitely, we have had a lot. Where we are now, where we're going.
Yes.
What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that climate change is not a foreign concept. It is the everyday disruption you see here in Kenya and in neighboring Ethiopia when it comes to droughts and the increase in food prices, right? When you see migration, that is climate change. And to kind of think of it in those terms and to know that our prosperity as nations, as people, as a continent is dependent on us doing things differently, not wasting the resources that we have, being efficient with the resources that we have, and developing in a different way. And not to be discouraged by that, but to be encouraged by the fact that we have everything we need to lead more sustainable lives and to have more climate-friendly economies that mean that these challenges don't have to be our children's challenges.
Yes, they don't have to be our children's challenges. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's been a good one. And I hope you've also enjoyed and seeing your messages and your WhatsApp. Thank you so much, guys, for also tuning in and being with me and hang out with me till the end. Till next week, same place, same time. Definitely your one and only KANG'ETHE NJOROGE on Money Mondays. Stand by for definitely other shows coming in. And of course, remember to hang out with the breakfast crew tomorrow from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. From us to you is a peace out. Great music. Enjoy it only on Icon Radio.
Yeah. Punguza stress, smoke up some more and worry less. Oh, don't you know life is a test? Na kila mtu twana guess. Ongeza bia, jaba kwa wale wanaosinzia. Leta ketepa ikiwa fresh, mabati leo highway. I'm feeling blessed. Bashi meja tunawaresh. On the menu they're serving legs. Dress code ya leo ni underdress. Ekelea bet, ikianguka usivex. Ngojea tena game next. Usishi maisha na regret. Sina pupa yeah. Cheza mziki pole pole bumaye. Real rumba mziki wa kipekee. Kila mtu na wake jitete. Sina pupa yeah. Cheza mziki pole pole bumaye. Real rumba mziki wa kipekee. Kila mtu na wake jitete. Nimekuja one man, lakini liwalo lazima to have fun. Na kuona ukiniona you need a real one. We kwangu ushafika, wacha to advance. Show you some romance, yeah. Usisikize umbea, kama ni kulewa leo hii tutalewa. Nitalipia kila kitu tapewa. Mimi ndo kusema sina pupa ye, cheza mziki pole pole bumaye, drill rumba mziki wa kipekee, kila mtu na wake jitete, sina pupa ye, cheza mziki pole pole bumaye, drill rumba mziki wa kipekee, kila mtu na wake jitete. Jite sukus mielore nyakache, ojende olonyore manokoro kuko bagore, jogi bende koro oidho anigini koro ringere moya wakona mano miel maneno. Aha, kaki mielna in slow-mo, ahero sana to makionjo, mama milka yo 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 yo, ayo mama milka yo yo yo, olalo mama milka yo 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 yo, aha mama milka yo yo yo, ay mama milka yo 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 yo, ayo mama milka yo yo yo, olalo mama milka yo 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 yo, mama milka yo yo yo. Sina pupa ye, cheza mziki pole pole bumaye, drill rumba mziki wa kipekee, kila mtu na wake jitete. Hii rumba ni drill rumba, na drill rumba ndio real rumba. Hii rumba ni drill rumba, na drill rumba ndio real rumba. Mama milka yo 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 yo, ayo mama milka yo yo yo, ololo mama milka yo 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 yo, mama milka yo yo yo.
Merci ma pesa, Papa Manento, Boss, CEO Doc Skei Nyamu, Eric Mandala.